the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go? To meet the Mets! Oh, they're hollering and cheering and they're jumping in their seats. Where do they go? To meet the Mets! All the fans are true to the orange and blue, so hurry up and come on down, 'cause we got ourselves a ball club, the Mets of New York town. Give 'em a yell! Give 'em a hand! And let 'em know you're rooting in the stand. Come on and meet the Mets.
Breaking news for our New York Mets. Enjoy the show and let's go Mets.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another Mets Talk Live right here on the channel on this special off-day edition of Mets Talk Live, New York Mets edition, because the New York Mets decided that the weather, or let me put this in a better way, the Atlanta Braves decided to hide under a rock, and Major League Baseball was too scared to overturn and actually manage the Atlanta Braves with the weather that everybody knew except for the Atlanta Braves and Major League Baseball about the weather. And the New York Mets now find themselves one game behind in front of the Braves, tied with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and they still got 5 games to play, possibly a doubleheader that is going to be meaningful for the New York Mets, the Atlanta Braves, or the Arizona Diamondbacks on Monday, while Major League Baseball still has not pushed back the National League Wildcard Series that is supposed to start on Tuesday to at least Wednesday to give any team a chance to travel, specifically the Mets and the Braves, who might have to travel across country depending on when the second game ends. If that second game is played at all, depending on the circumstance, travel from Atlanta to the West Coast, because there's a pretty good chance that if the Mets, whoever doesn't face the Brewers, and if both of them make it, somebody's got to travel to the West Coast. And in these next 5 games for the Mets and the Braves, they basically got to use their whole pitching staff. And unfair or not, it was just a terrible job by the Atlanta Braves that thought they can probably get over on and probably screw the Mets as much as possible, along with Major League Baseball, who has the final say in all of this. Let the Atlanta Braves dictate the outcome of what was supposed to happen in Atlanta. So the important thing is that the Mets by no means can be eliminated if they get swept by the Milwaukee Brewers. It's not an easy way into the playoffs if that's the case, but there's still a chance depending on what Arizona does and the Braves do. So we are here. We're supposed to play baseball today, but because of the weather, life sucks, right? Life sucks. I'm trying to get this camera right here. I'm trying a little crooked here, but that's all right. Who cares, right? That's all right. But we all know that the games that are left, right? There's nothing we can do about Tuesday and the Mets losing 5-1, playing lifeless, playing scared. Severino in big games, late in seasons, and in postseason in his career has not been very good, and he kind of showed his I guess pinstripes and the way about how he pitched in big games. But I'm not going to kill Severino. There was a lot of bad luck involved, but he needed to be better. And the Mets offense really didn't help him anyway, so it would probably be pointless if Severino pitched good and waste a good outing. But now we got the Brewers starting tomorrow. The Brewers, and I'm going to pull up the handy dandy standings here just to give you an idea of what I'm trying to talk about here before we get into the Mets scenarios and how they can make the playoffs. And we kind of broke it down into trying to avoid playing on Monday, but that seemingly is almost impossible, unfortunately, for all of us. But let's just break it down a little bit. But when it comes to the Brewers, right? The Brewers have 91 wins. The Dodgers have 94. That's a 3-game difference, right? Almost impossible, but possible, right? Possible. And the Phillies also have 94. So both of these teams are pretty good as the number 1 and number 2 seed getting the bye. Now, the Brewers won today. If the Dodgers lose today and say the Dodgers get swept and the Brewers sweep the Mets, they get the overall number 1 or number 2 seed and have the bye. So technically the Brewers will be playing for something. But if the Dodgers win today, it's basically mostly all over. And the Phillies, if they win one more game, it's all over for the Brewers, and they'll be stuck in that 3 spot, and they would be in the wild card series regardless, and they would have nothing to play for against the Mets. Doesn't mean they're not going to play hard, but they're not going to push their starters. They're going to take a lot of their main guys, the most important guys, out of the lineup early, and the Mets can try to take advantage of that. They're not going to use their best bullpen arms. They're going to use their, BC level guys, and that's what we're going to be working with. And luckily for the Mets, the Braves are playing Kansas City, who are fighting for their playoff lives, who won today. Sorry, guys. And the Arizona Diamondbacks are going to be playing the San Diego Padres, who are obviously playing for something. They still have a chance at the division. So the good news is that the Mets are playing a team that are basically in that number 3 seed, not really playing for nothing, want to prevent injuries. They want to set up their rotation, and they don't want to overuse any of their bullpen arms because they're playing on Tuesday. So not saying that the Mets can't lose against the Brewers. I mean, it's possible because it's baseball. And what's a little concerning is the fact that the Mets have to use all 5 starters, most likely, over these next 5 games, including the doubleheader on Monday. Okay. Where are we going to be when Sunday ends? Right? There's a few scenarios that I'm going to pop up in just a second, and then we'll really get into the Brewers series a little bit more. The Mets pitching matchups haven't really been determined yet. Mendoza hasn't put that out there yet. I put in parentheses who I think should pitch. Manaea, Peterson, Severino. We'll get into that a little bit more. I know about game 1 and Frankie Montas. So, sorry, guys. I'm sorry about that. Sorry, a little cough today. Let me just drink some water. All right, back. So we're gonna set it up right now just to show you a few scenarios. I know my man Chris did a really good job with it. We have very similar scenarios, but I want to do a little bit about what can happen if the Braves win and the Mets lose, if the Diamondbacks win, the Mets lose, if the Mets and Braves lose and the Diamondbacks win. A lot of scenarios that go into place and how important those Monday games can be. So this is what we're going to do right now. I'm going to put it up. All right. Hello. I'm very small because Everything around me is more important than my silly face. All right, so Jay, no whiteboard or no piece of paper with scribble on it. I was gonna do a whiteboard and just write everything down, but I like let me do it this way, and we could just figure it out this way. All right, so these are the stand-ins right now at the moment on the left. Obviously, the Padres are first, the Mets are second, D-backs and Mets are technically tied. But if the season ended today, the Mets would be the second wild card going to the San Diego, and the Diamondbacks would be going to Milwaukee. Boom, there it is. Mets scenario 1, as you see, Mets scenario 1 on top is explaining what has to be done for the Mets to clinch a playoff berth, and that would be the records after the weekend if that scenario turns out. So here we go. Mets scenario 1. Mets win 2 out of 3 in Milwaukee. Braves lose 2 out of 3 to Kansas City. D-backs lose, not 2. The number 2 out of 3 to San Diego. Mets clinch a playoff berth, right? Regardless of what happens in the Braves, even though the Braves on Monday are going to have to play those games because they got to really win those games. It's only going to matter to the Braves and Diamondbacks, not to the New York Mets. So in Mets scenario 1, Mets clinch playoff berth with an 89-71 record. Obviously, the 2 games haven't been played yet, but even if the Mets lose those 2 games against the Braves, the Diamondbacks have an 89-73 record, and if the Mets lose those 2 games on Monday, they have the same record as the Diamondbacks, and it wouldn't mean anything. The Diamondbacks would not catch the Mets in that scenario. So the Mets would be in the playoffs. If the Braves win those 2 games, they would be 87-73. Now, this is contingency scenario. If the Braves lose 2 out of 3 against Kansas City, they will have overall an 87-73 record. I'm sorry, 89-73 record. Let's go to we didn't do scenario 2 yet, but scenario 1 is basically the Mets would have 89-71 record, and the Diamondbacks would finish with 89-73 record for the season if the D-backs lose 2 out of 3 against San Diego. Braves clinch playoff berth if Braves win both games on Monday. Now we're going to go over to Monday and the possible scenario, Mets scenario 2. Similar situation, kind of. If Mets win 2 out of 3 in Milwaukee, Braves win 2 out of 3 in Kansas City, D-backs lose 2 out of 3 to San Diego, Mets and Braves get in, Arizona is out and the Braves win both Monday games because that would be how they would actually get to a similar total or have a couple of games more, but the Mets would have the 3 spot and the Braves would have the 2 spot. Mets will be going to Milwaukee, Braves will be going to San Diego or whoever is the West Coast team that is the first wild card. Well, see, that's the thing. The Braves kind of screwed themselves overall because now they're actually pushing back. They're saving Sale and Schwellenbach for the Monday series, the Monday games against the Mets. Because I don't know why they're doing this, but they're going with their worst pitchers in the Kansas City series, which is crazy because they can actually, if the Diamondbacks lose 2 out of 3, the Braves only have to win 3 of their next 5, regardless of how they do it. So I don't know why they're pushing it back. Like, I truly believe this, and this is just me talking, not nobody else. I truly think the Braves really don't care if they make the playoffs or not. As long as they bury the Mets in the process, they'll be happy with just making it in the 3rd wild card. I truly believe that. I think they would rather bounce the Mets out of the playoffs completely than them having to fight on Monday for a playoff spot with Arizona and knowing that the Mets are in it. I think they want to destroy the Mets' hopes of the playoffs altogether. I truly believe that. Well, yeah, exactly, Chris. That's what I'm saying. Like, they're going to keep – see, that's the thing, though. Like, if the Braves need one of those games or both of those games, are they really going to wait, hold Sale for game 2 on Monday and pitch Schwellenbach in game 1? Because either way, it's kind of really good pitcher to Schwellenbach, who just dominates the Mets. But seeing him for a second time within a week, maybe that would benefit the Mets, right? So again, it really depends. It's really it is a fluid situation. But the Braves didn't really help themselves much at all, because it puts them in a situation, because remember, they're playing in Atlanta. Atlanta is getting pounded by rain and the hurricane. There's no guarantee that this hurricane is going to move fast enough for them to play tomorrow. What if one of their games against Kansas City gets rained out, and now they're going to play a doubleheader Saturday or Sunday? So, I mean, that's their problem, but that's the situation they're putting themselves into. Now, I haven't checked the weather in Atlanta, and I'll do that right now, just considering I did have the Atlanta up here. Because on Friday, there's a 100% chance of rain on Friday. So they might not even play on Friday against Kansas City. So that means that there's a possibility that they might have to play a doubleheader Saturday or Sunday, and also play a doubleheader on Monday. So they really put themselves in a situation here where they were trying to be a smartass. They were trying to be, let's see how we can screw the Mets at every single turn. Yet in this outcome, they might screw themselves overall, because at this moment, the Mets are in a better shape than Atlanta because of the situation that with these two games. The Mets win 2 out of 3 against the Brewers. It's very unlikely that the Mets wouldn't clinch a playoff spot when Sunday's over. And that's if the Arizona and the Braves win 2 out of 3, or one of them sweep. So they really put themselves in a situation here, and that's their problem. No, D, I understand the Braves are making it into the playoff, trying to make it into the playoffs, obviously. But don't think for a second they're not trying to put the final nail in the Mets' coffin as well. They're trying to do that. And I do believe, I truly believe that they think the Mets are going to fall on their face in Milwaukee. I truly believe this. I feel like they believe that the Mets are going to fall on their faces in Milwaukee, because the Braves know the Mets as a team that chokes and a team that doesn't play well under pressure. I think the Braves are waiting for the situation where the Mets either lose 2 out of 3 or get swept, and they need the 2 games against Atlanta. And Atlanta say even if they win 2 out of 3 against Kansas City, the Mets are going to have to win those 2 games on Monday, and they're going to have to face Sale and Schwellenbach. That's what I think. I truly believe this. I think they feel confident in Kansas City coming to Atlanta that they can take 2 out of 3. I think they truly believe that the Mets are going to fall all over themselves in Milwaukee and lose at least 2 out of 3. Because if we lose 2 out of 3 and the Braves win 2 out of 3, they're up a game. And now we would have to win the 2 games on Monday, because of the fact that the tiebreaker will go to Atlanta if they win one of those games. And then we just hope that Arizona just blows up. Because if Arizona gets their ass kicked, then the Mets are fine. So it's a very interesting craziness. Yeah, exactly, Chris. The Mets and the Braves are going to take it day by day, right? I think they're going to go on who's feeling the best. Everybody's getting a little bit extra rest. It is going to be very interesting as I would change it back over to the. Give me a second, guys. Let me just change it back. It's really going to depend, right? I have Manaea, Peterson, Severino. I don't remember. My apologies, Chris. You can say it in the chat. I think you had Manaea and Peterson game 1 and 2. I'm not sure about game 3 if you had Severino. Yeah, everybody is scoreboard watching, but I know you had the first 2, Manaea, Peterson. I do wonder, because I don't think the Mets want to pit Severino against the Braves again, because I don't think that the Mets trust Severino enough against the Braves within a week seeing them again. I don't know if they want Severino pitching in one of those games on Monday. Now, you got to throw at least two of your best guys in this Milwaukee series. Manaea should pitch the first game. I don't think he should play any games here. Manaea is your best pitcher. Win game one, and at the very least, you're going into Saturday at least still tied with the Diamondbacks and still a game up on the Braves. I think that's the scenario that the Mets want. So I think Manaea is going to pitch tomorrow. Now, where it gets a little tricky, do you pitch Severino in this series? Because I think Peterson's going to pitch after Manaea. Now, would you pitch Severino game 3 of the Brewers series? Say if the Mets win 2 out of 3 and Arizona lose 2 out of 3, the Mets are in. Because the Diamondbacks and the Mets could only have the same amount of losses, the same record, if Mets lose the last 3 games. So they would be okay. So Severino might not have to pitch in that Brewer series, and we would clinch. So what I would think is that Quintana would pitch. If the Mets need 1 game on Monday, Quintana should pitch game 1 against the Braves. And game 2, if Severino has to go on the Sunday, you're going to have to go with Tyler McGill. I know that's crazy to say, but you can't throw Manaea on 3 days rest. I mean, you could and piggyback McGill or piggyback all your bullpen, but you're really causing problems when if and when you get to the wild card series, and who knows who's going to pitch. So it's going to be very interesting. You see, I don't know if they would pitch Manaea on short rest. I don't know. I don't know. I'm really not sure. Yeah, well, you know, Chris, I think Severino is going to be marked in, only because I wouldn't feel comfortable with Severino pitching to Atlanta a week apart after he didn't pitch well against Atlanta. Now, I'm not saying that Severino can't do it, but I don't want a Braves lineup seeing him a week apart. I'd rather just go with Quintana, and I'd rather go with McGill, 2 guys they have not seen. And I think it would just make more sense that way. Yeah. If the Mets take the first 2 games in Milwaukee, the 3rd game in Milwaukee is kind of point. But again, it depends on what everybody else does, right? If everybody wins 2 out of 3, those Monday games for the Mets, one of those games are going to matter. They need to win one of those games because at the moment, say if everybody wins 2 out of 3 and everybody is in the same spot as they are today on Monday, all the Mets have to do is win one of those games. Technically, not really. Because if Arizona wins 2, yeah, exactly. They would have to win. They would have to win one of those games just to beat Arizona. And then to knock out the Braves, if the Mets win both of those games on Monday, the Braves are out and Arizona's in. So the Mets and Braves would have to win 1 game apiece to knock out Arizona. So Arizona's hoping for basically, I mean, they want the Braves and the Mets to lose, but they wouldn't mind a scenario where the Braves and the Mets have to split in those 2 games on Monday. So it's going to be crazy. Like, I mean, look, the Mets control their own destiny here, right? Because if the Braves slip up 1 game against Kansas City and the Mets win 2 out of 3 and the Arizona wins 2 out of 3, the Braves have to win at least 2 out of their next 3 games to tie Arizona. So they can't lose 2 out of 3 or they'll be done. So it's going to be crazy. But look, let's just make it. Let's just be great here. Let's have fun. Let's say San Diego just beats the hell out of Arizona and they sweep them. Mets only have to win 1 game. And the Braves have to win 2 games out of the next 5, and they're basically in. So, you know, it all revolves around Arizona playing good, mediocre, or bad, really. Because, if the Braves have a bad weekend against Kansas City, they're basically in trouble. If they lose 2 out of 3, unless the Mets and Diamondbacks lose 2 out of 3, they're gonna have a hard time making the playoffs. So, in the Mets case, win 2 out of 3, right? We're not asking for. Look, we all would love a sweep. A sweep would just make it so easy for the Mets, because then the Braves only have to lose once and the Arizona has to lose once, and then we're good. So, win 2 out of 3, and at the very least, you're going into Monday only needed 1 game. Yeah, that's true too. We need Minnesota, right? Because they're up 2 games. Yeah, let's see. I have to go there. That's true too. Yeah, because they're 2.5 behind right now. Kansas City, did they play? Did they play today? They didn't play. So if they play today, Kansas City did win. So if Minnesota wins, they're 3 games up. So again, Kansas City still at least has to play. Because if Minnesota loses today, Kansas City only has to win one game to clinch, because that would be it. So that would be oh boy. Oh, actually, no, Minnesota needs to win today to get right. 100%. So, all right, let's go Minnesota. But again, Kansas City might want to try for seeding as well. I know we're not really caring about seeding here, but I mean, if you're the 3 seed, you're going to be playing Houston. And if you're the 2nd seed, you're playing Baltimore. So I guess Kansas City, depending on who you might want to face, if they're thinking about that, we'll see. But it is going to be very, very interesting. There's so much to think about. But again, the Mets just have to win. That's it. Win. 2 out of 3 is a minimum to know that you're going to at least. Now, again, we will know by Saturday, once the game's over on Saturday, where the Mets are. If they're in a really good spot, an okay spot, or a bad spot. That's where they are. Hold on, guys. Let me just check something out here. Just looking at the comments. The comments are coming in a little slow. I apologize. I'm trying to read them all. But they're coming in kind of twice. I think it's StreamYard kind of going slow right now. All right. So that's where we are right now. So let's get to the Brewers series as a whole. Let's talk about it, right? Obviously, yesterday, and Chris brought it up on his stream, Lindor was in the lineup card when it got posted before the game got postponed. That's a great sign. He was leading off, playing shortstop. Now he has 2 extra days to rest before. 2 extra days, and basically 3 extra days, considering we don't play until 7 o'clock Central Time in Milwaukee and 8 o'clock Eastern Time. So he basically got 3 full days. Well, basically all these days, next 3 days to rest until the game on tomorrow night. So he's got a good situation there, and hopefully Lindor's ready to go, can play shortstop and lead off. And looks like Frankie Montas is going to be on game 1. I haven't looked at his record yet, his totals or anything like that, but I'm going to check it right now because I'm a little curious. Let's see what he got. So he's 7-11 with a 4.85 ERA, 142 strikeouts. So he hasn't been great for them, but he is a guy. He is a strikeout guy. He can strike out a lineup with the best of them. Committee, I don't care. I think every 3 teams you brought up, the Mets can beat them. Just like, because I think anybody who makes the playoffs can beat anybody. And that's the way I see it. So I don't care who we play. Get in, and I'll worry about that, once the Mets are officially in. Then I'll start talking about the matchup or possibility of who we're going to play. Because I don't think it really matters. I think if you don't play well, you're not going to win, regardless of who you play. So it doesn't matter to me. And you know what? For a Mets fan base, that had the season is enjoying the season like the Mets have, make the playoffs, and then I worry about that when we get there. Yeah, exactly, CP. Exactly. Like I just hope that the Brewers, like they might start those guys, but they're probably only going to pitch them an inning or two just to keep up their workload a little bit, and that's it. That's what I would think would happen, and I think they'll do that in Game 1 as well. I don't think they're going to keep their starters in long, and this is a scenario where the Mets really need to put runs on the board very early, because if you put runs up early in the game, they're not going to do their best to keep, bring in better bullpen arms and keep their starters in longer. They're not going to do that. If you go ahead, they might say, all right, let's bring out our bench guys and let's take our starters out. So the first game tomorrow, the Mets need to come out guns blazing. They need to put like 3-4 runs up in the first 2 innings or so, just so the Brewers don't get that little energy of competitiveness and start playing good and seeing they have a chance of winning the ball game. If you put up a couple of runs, they might back off a little bit. They might take out. They're not going to use their big bullpen arms. They're not going to keep their starters in more than 3-4 innings. Score early and let the Brewers start taking their guys out and not really putting your big guys in the pitch. Don't need your starters in to try to come back in the ball game. The Mets' job is to score early. You score early. Look, there's going to be competitive juices flowing on the Brewers side, of course, but they're not going to go above and beyond to get guys hurt. Pat Murphy, the Brewers coach, is a smart guy, and he's not going to do that. So the key to the Mets here, especially in Game 1, score early. That also makes the Braves and Diamondbacks start looking at the scoreboard and like, oh, God, the Mets are winning. Now they're going to put some pressure on themselves trying to win, because the Braves, yeah, they can beat the Mets, but they haven't really done a really good job playing well, or at least good enough against other teams. And Kansas City isn't a throwaway game. Now, if Minnesota loses today, Kansas City is kind of in. Now, if they're worried about seeding, and again, I don't think it matters with the Braves with winning, with the Mets. I think it all comes down to Arizona. If Arizona loses 2 out of 3 or even gets swept, it's basically game over, and the Mets will probably clinch unless they get swept as well. So, again, the key to this whole shebang, the Mets tomorrow come out swinging, putting up runs early, and let the Brewers not care about the game. Let's not let them worry about the game. Don't let them feel like they can win a ball game here. Put up a couple of runs early, get the job done. You're going to have your best pitcher on the mound, which I think will be Manaea, and just do it, right? At the end of the day, the Braves are a game behind us and Arizona. They're the ones they have to win, because if they lose, they're in trouble. That's 1 game off the schedule. So the possibilities with the Mets, even though they lost the 1 game in Atlanta, it would have been great if they would have won. That would have put the Braves 3 games back, and the Mets basically only had to win 1 of these games, and the Braves would have to sweep out, and the Mets would have to lose all their games for even the Braves to have a tiebreaker with the Mets. So the Mets still are in a good spot. That's why going into Atlanta and winning 3 out of 4 against Philly, having a 2-game lead, was so crucial, because of a scenario where the Mets might have not played well in Atlanta if the games happened. They didn't play well in Game 1. But now they have the opportunity to play a team that is probably set in the 3 spot and is going to play a wild card series. Score early and just put their minds at ease. Let them take out their starters. Let them not use their big bullpen arms. Let them use their C-level bullpen arms, their bench players, on the roster, put them in the lineup, and just win. If you win, nothing can happen to the Mets badly and get out of their control unless they lose. Win game 1, and the Diamondbacks have to win. The Braves have to win to stay status quo going into Saturday. That's it. Could they do it? Why not? For all the craziness that went around on Tuesday when the Mets were looking bad against the Braves and they looked lifeless, they looked scared. Nobody played well except for Vientos. They've continued to prove to us all season that when they had a bad series or a bad loss, they've come back in that next game and played extremely well. Yeah, Met fans are nervous. Yes, they're down that they lost that game on Tuesday against the Braves. But this team has shown bounce back every single time. And for me to say that I don't trust their ability to bounce back is not fair to them when they proved it time and time again. Now, the pressure is very much on them. Maybe not seeing red and navy blue and the tomahawk makes them feel a little bit better about everything. I don't know. Because I still think it's completely mental when it comes to the Braves in Atlanta. They just got to bounce back. Win tomorrow, and I feel confident they'll take one of the next 2 games against the Brewers. And then it's very likely, regardless if everybody does the exact same thing the Mets do, the Mets would only have to have 1 game overall to make sure that the Mets make the playoffs. That's it. And Daniel, you're 100% right. The Atlanta Braves are chasing. They're not in a playoff spot right now. They can't afford a hiccup here. They, more than anybody, need 2 out of 3 against Kansas City. So that's what they have to do. And yeah, but again, Rhys Hoskins is an asshole, and we all know that. But in the same aspect, they're not going to overwork their own guys if they don't need to. I'd be shocked if they keep them in an entire game. Now, for game 1, they might do it. Their starting lineup. Just to keep them looking at live pitching and all that fun stuff. But after that, I don't think so. They might get an inning or 2, and that's about it. But scoring early tomorrow will kind of make their decision, pulling guys early, very easy. And that's what the Mets have to do. If the Mets struggle against Montas and can't score going to the 3rd inning, the 4th inning, the 5th inning, maybe the Brewers will be like, oh, shit, we can win this game. Might not take a lot. That's what you want to avoid. You score early, you kind of make up their mind for them and their manager. They'll take their guys out. There's no point in keeping them in and risking injuries, especially with their big guys, especially with Hoskins, who's coming off a serious knee injury. 1 step, he's done. I don't like seeing injuries on anybody, but, anything can happen at any moment. You take 1 wrong step, that's it. Your season's over. Yeah, easy. Well, you can't get locked down by Montas. I agree with you. But it is baseball. We've seen pitchers that aren't good pitch no-hitters and pitch perfect games and have their pitch a game of their life. We've seen it all the time in baseball history. Just because we don't, he hasn't been good doesn't mean, I think Montas is a free agent. This might be his last start because he might not start in the postseason. He might, but you don't know. This might be his final start to showcase for teams in his free agency. Right? Montas is trying to pitch for a new contract as well. So just because he hasn't pitched well, lasting impressions of teams were like, wow, look at Montas last few games, his last start of the season. So, it's not just about, he hasn't pitched well. We understand that. But we've seen bad pitchers or guys that haven't pitch well when it really doesn't matter to their team. And not only is he going to be pitching for a contract, if he has the game of his life, that might, it takes one team to see that and be like, look at his stuff. He has the potential. He can still be really good. He's not 38 years old. So that's a scenario that I always worry about. But yes, I agree with you. The Mets should hit Frankie Montas based on his record and his ERA. Absolutely. But he is a pretty decent strikeout guy as well. And the Mets are prone to striking out, especially when they're not hitting. And the last thing we need, and this has nothing to do with Montas, this has to do with the Mets and their mental capacity. What if they don't score in the first couple of innings? The pressure is going to mount and mount and mount some more. We already seen it in the Braves, and I know it's Atlanta, and I know it's the Braves. Different scenario. But you know what? We do play 45 minutes later than Atlanta would play. Now, Atlanta might not even play tomorrow. It's 100% rain on Friday. So I don't know. They might have to play a doubleheader Saturday or Sunday. Excuse me. But Arizona might be scoreboard watching as well. I think they play later than us. But you just don't want to put the pressure on themselves for no reason. Score early. Make the Brewers take out their guys. If the score gets to 4-5-0 early, they're not going to really, look, the guys are going to still try to hit and try to score, but they're not going to put their big pitchers in there. Just score early, and everything else will probably take care of itself. Manaea is going to stay in the ball game, do his thing. You bat first. You bat in the top of the first. You're the away team. Score early. Get it done. No excuses anymore. Sick and tired of, this team can't beat the Braves. Yeah, true. We know that. But how about this? Beat the Brewers and you won't have to worry about the Braves. Maybe those Monday games won't matter for us. And that's the goal. The goal is for Monday not to matter for us at all. At the very least, one game might matter for the Mets on Monday. But our goal is to win 2 out of 3. Look, our best case goal is to sweep. We sweep, we're golden. Unless the Diamondbacks and the Braves sweep, then it's like, shit, you can't do nothing about it. We did our job. They also did their job, right? But it's probably unlikely. But take 2 out of 3. You take 2 out of 3, you're guaranteeing yourself, at the very least, clinching a playoff berth if Arizona don't win 2 out of 3. Because if they lose 2 out of 3, they're in trouble. And the Mets clinch. So that's the best case scenario. And we're going to talk about it before we end the stream. The core of this team. Talk about it all the time. Nimmo. Alonso. Those guys are going to be somewhere in the top middle part of the order. Get the fucking job done. Specifically, Pete Alonso. Wake up. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Stop putting your head down. Grow a pair. Keep your head up and win a fucking ball game for this team. How about that? Please. Please. Do something in this series where I can say Pete Alonso actually helped this team win. Because I know what Pete Alonso has done more often this season is help this team lose games. And I have no confidence in that guy at all. At least Nimmo hit a big home run against Philly. Wake up. grow a pair. Stop being this guy in the corner with his head down, be sobbing all over the place, breaking his bat over his knee, and looking lost in the dugout. Wake up. Show us something. Show us Met fans, because they idiotically gave you a standing ovation. You know what? I understand why they did it. It might be his last home games at Citi Field. Well, whose fault is that? That is Alonso's fault. You had a contract offer. That's your fault. Ain't the Mets' fault. If you really wanted to be here, you could have took that very, very favorable offer. That was a very nice offer the Mets gave him. That's it. So the Met fans were there for you. They gave you that standing O. They tried to cheer you on in that game while you were striking out twice and doing absolutely nothing with the bat. And another teammate had to pick up yourself and pick you up once again. Do some damage in this series. Make it known that you're actually part of this team. Because right now, I mean, seriously, you don't do nothing except hurt this team. Do your job. Be the power hitter. I don't need you to go 3 for 4 with 3 doubles. Hit a couple of balls over the wall with people on base. How about doing that? Well, guys, we are playing game 158 tomorrow, finally, with 5 games on the schedule, but only 1 game matters, and that is tomorrow. Score early. Don't let Milwaukee think they can try to win this game. You score early. They're not going to bring in their big bullpen arms. They're probably going to take their starters midway through the game and make it an easy victory. There should be no reason why you can't win tomorrow. With that said, guys, I will be doing a pregame tomorrow. Chris will be traveling to Milwaukee and going to the games. So he won't be able to join the pregame, possibly the postgame tomorrow in Milwaukee. We'll see. Again, he might be throwing back a few, enjoying himself. So I'm not going to, if he wants to come on, he's always welcome. He knows that. But I'll have you for the pre and post tomorrow, win or lose. I'll be there in the pregame. I'll be there in the postgame. So you got a full pregame, full postgame with me, and possibly postgame with me and Chris, at least with Chris for a little bit. So, guys, with that said, the Mets are a game up on the Braves, tied with the Arizona Diamondbacks, officially in the number 2 spot of the wild card. If the season ended today, they would be headed to San Diego. But the season's not over yet. We'll see what the Mets are going to do. Will they prove us wrong once again and bounce back and play well and put their own playoff berth in their own hands? Because it means nothing if they don't finish this job. This, oh my God, Grimace, Haktua, all the other gimmicks all year would mean absolutely nothing if you don't make the playoffs. With that said, guys, thank you for tuning in to Mets Talk Live right here on the channel. If you're watching on X, please head over to YouTube on the link and hit that subscribe button. And also, if you're watching on Twitch, we've been getting a lot of Twitch viewers over the last week or so. Come over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button. And guys, it's crunch time. It's do or die. The Mets have the opportunity to make the playoffs by just winning ball games. Can they do it? We shall see. Have a great night, guys. Let's go Mets, and I'll see you for pre and post tomorrow, before and after Mets Brewers. Have a good night, guys. Let's go Mets, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Welcome to Talkin' Mets with Rob. Subscribe to the channel for all your New York Mets in-game live, pre-game, post-game, roundtable podcast, and all the breaking news for our New York Mets. Enjoy the show and let's go Mets.
Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life because the Mets are